So here to break down the races and the progression of the Republican Party more broadly is Anna Paulina Luna. She's been on the ground in the state of Georgia and joins us now. So Anna, I don't know if I can stress how important these Georgia races are. I mean, we spent several segments talking about it, really a check that it could have over a potential Biden administration, just some form of representation at the federal level for many conservatives. Is there anything else that I'm missing here?
Well, I can tell you that I was there and I saw a massive mobilization effort on behalf of Democrats, not just to train volunteers, but they are literally bringing organizations like Souls to the Polls in, which claim to be religious based and are essentially targeting the African American vote through religion, okay, to push candidates like Warnock and Minnie Trudeau.
Hmm.
And so you look at what's happening and you see it from our perspective. So, yeah, people need to get out and vote. We need volunteers. We need people to do the door knocking because really, this is for us, especially moving forward. I mean, Senate is important. And what these people want to put in place, what the policies that they want to usher in are completely communist. And frankly, that's one of the last really thresholds that we have to really defend ourselves. So yes, vote. It matters. It counts. And your vote will be counted.
And if you look over the past 4 years, and if you just say, for example, that Republicans did not have the Senate, that means no Amy Coney Barrett, no Neil Gorsuch, no Judge Kavanaugh, none of those federal level judges, anything like that, no tax cuts. I mean, I could go on and on. The real reason why there was a Trump agenda is because he did have Senate control. So as far as Republicans go, are you seeing the same type of mobilization and efforts in the state of Georgia on the Republican side as you're seeing from Democrats as well?
There's a ton going on. In fact, I was actually out there working with two organizations. One of them was Club for Growth. And so, yeah, we have a massive mobilization effort. But, the best thing that people can do, and if you're watching this now and you're in the state of Georgia, the best thing that you can do is honestly tell your friends. Early voting already started, and, we need people to bring people to the polls. I know it sounds weird, but sometimes just sending an email and ensuring that everyone that you have an ear of, that you tell them, hey, go to the polls, vote. I think a lot of people were really bummed out that they thought that their vote wouldn't count. And that's just not the case. We have so much light on this, so many eyeballs, really keeping track of what's going to happen. We need to ensure that every single person shows up to the polls. So yes, we have something similar, but we could always use more.
I think that's such an important point that you bring up right there, though, is I know that there are people who are concerned about the results of the last election, but there is so much scrutiny, so much oversight being applied to the state of Georgia. Republicans are now there in massive numbers. It's so important, if they do want to win in Georgia, to go out there and vote. That's really the only message that you can put out there now for a lot of these people. And when you look at the polls, too, when you look at Kelly Loeffler, the average of polls, which I know we can laugh off after what we just saw, but that's all we have to go off of right now. Kelly Loeffler is up by about 1 percentage point, and it's the same thing for David Perdue. So do you think that when it comes to these Georgia races, it's either win both of them or not win either of them? Do you think that it's really just a vote for Republican or Democrat more so than it is for either of these two candidates?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I say that because when you look at the platforms, in fact, there's the Biden-Kamala team of door knockers that's actually now door knocking on behalf of the two Democrat candidates, which would be Ossoff and Warnock. So, it is Democrat versus Republican in the state of Georgia. And, I can't imagine why the Democrat Party would want to go for the battle of the United States in Georgia, because we know that Georgia is staunchly Republican. But again, we need to get those Republican voters to the polls. So I do hope and I do have faith in seeing what I'm seeing now that it will go Republican, but we can't get complacent. And it's not even just about maintaining a 1% lead. It's about actually making sure that people are going out there so that we're comfortably ahead. You don't know what's going to happen on election day, so vote early if you can in person.
And I mean, you said that you were out there. I saw you with efforts with Catalina Lauf, another congressional candidate, Madison Cawthorn as well. He's been on this program several times. But you could just look at the other big names who are going there. Vice President Mike Pence spoke there. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are both going to be campaigning there in person as well. Really, you could just look at the big names that are coming into the state of Georgia. And if that doesn't tell you how important this race is going to be, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, the biggest names in both sides of politics are in that state campaigning right now. But you've been in a campaign. You know what this looks like internally. What does this look like? What are the candidates doing right now? Is it just a matter of getting volunteers out there? Is it organizing campaign ads? What does it look like from the internal part of a campaign about 2-3 weeks out of the race?
I'd say that this is really crunch time for the candidates. So I know 2 to 3 weeks out sounds like, such a short amount of time, but in campaign world, there's a lot that can pop up. When you look at the presidential, we have all of those October surprises that pop up weeks prior to election day. So it's something similar, especially for the Senate race, because it is so important. So I can tell you that the candidates are definitely flexing with their social media, and that's good to see because I think that it provides, their voters with the connection to them, but also to showing up to as many events that you can that are are large where people can say, hey, I saw so-and-so, and this is what I can tell you. And really, I mean, the name of the game is if you have the name ID. Your name ID is what really will get you the election. So I don't think there's any shortage of that. You can't go anywhere in that state without seeing an ad, whether it's negative or positive, about any of the candidates. So it'll definitely be one to be watching on January 5th, which is, I believe, their election day.
Yeah, and I mean, you're exactly right. A lot can happen in 3 weeks. I mean, if this was the November race, I think we're about at the Hunter Biden laptop phase of this whole campaign. There's still a lot that can happen between now and that January runoff. But I think that there is something here that is worth saying as well. I mean, for example, you have a pulse, if you will, on the conservative movement right now. We were just talking in the last segment about how there's a little bit of a movement happening within the conservative movement where we see people like Josh Hawley advocating for stimulus checks. Just last week, we saw Representative Matt Gaetz saying that it's time for the U.S. to end the war on drugs, for example, get out of Afghanistan. It's just a different Republican Party than maybe the one we saw 10 years ago. So following the November election, did the Republican voters give the party a clear direction of where it wants to go moving forward?
Absolutely. It's no longer the Republican Party of your grandfather or even really your father. What we're seeing now is really the rebranding of the Republican Party. I would say the new Republican Party. And really what that entails is, no big outside interests. It is an American first agenda. And I think that what are really seeing even in the state of Georgia, if you look to see what's happening, the people want elected officials that will vote for them. And they make no apologies for that either. They don't want candidates that are that retail politician that we saw so many years prior. And I think that really for candidates like myself and those that will be running in 2022 and moving forward, that it makes a difference knowing that the voters know, one, who you are and that you're not from Washington, D.C. People don't want the swamp, and the swamp is real, and we saw that with President Trump over the last 4 years.
That's a very good point, because I remember, too, when we were following your campaign, for example, that there was a difference there between kind of a grassroots type of organization knocking on doors in person as compared to what Democrats essentially resorted to. I mean, they were really pushing the coronavirus. They didn't want in-person events or anything. So as a result, they did end up taking a lot of dark money, actually, something that Democrats used to speak out against all the time, but it's now becoming a center point of their campaign. So is that part of this realignment, if you will, that perhaps the Republican Party is starting to focus more so on the working class, whereas the Democratic Party is getting back to those corporatist type of ways?
Oh, absolutely. The Democrat Party now is the party of billionaires. I mean, you look at what's happening now, some of their benefactors that are dumping all of this money into these races. And then you look at what the Republican Party is representing. Republicans, in part, largely why we are resonating nationally with so many people is because look at the amount of small businesses that were actually killed permanently because of the COVID lockdowns. And then look at the people that benefited from them, people like Jeff Bezos. That type of model is not a model that the people want to vote for. And so what I can tell you is, seeing what I'm seeing and then moving forward, not all lobbying is created equally. And you're absolutely right. The Democrat Party did take a lot of dark money. And what that means to people who might not know that is that it's tied to corporate interests, to not necessarily good things for your average American. And really what we're seeing now with the Republicans that are running is that they're not from Washington, D.C. A lot of them are grassroots fundraising, whether it's on social media or in person, and people want that fresh blood. And frankly, I'm just happy that there are people now in Congress who understand what's happening with digital media, because that's something that is going to impact all of us, and that's a big fight that we have ahead of us. And frankly, I'm actually still fighting it. So,
and I'm going to get to that in a second, but I think you're exactly right, because when you look at issues such as tech censorship, for example, or media bias, I mean, it's always going in one direction, and it's always decisions that are being made by a select group of elites, either in Silicon Valley or New York City, whatever it may be. And you can just look at their donations. You can see exactly who they're supporting and who they're not. And we're starting to see the effects of that, whether it's media suppression or censorship online, things of that nature. So I think you're exactly right to bring that up. But before I let you go as well, too, if anybody wants to follow what you're doing in Georgia and your upcoming campaign as well, as I heard you mention, where can they go to follow you?
You can follow me at Real Anna Paulina on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Parler. If it has social media, I'm probably on it, and it has that name, so you can follow me there.
There you go. Anna Paulina, I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight and breaking down all of these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.